It was 11 p.m. and I was wide awake. I had been exhausted all day. I'm talking the kind of tired where you would just give anything to lie down. The kids were finally asleep. The dishes could wait until the morning. I had the room dark. The temperature was right. My body was settled into the bed. But my brain was still running, just bouncing, replaying the day, jumping to what I had to take care of tomorrow, narrating the morning schedule for no reason I could name. My body had clocked out and my nervous system had just not gotten the memo that it was time to go to bed. If you've ever had a night like that, I want to walk through what I figured out about mine. For a long time, I just assumed it was me. Like maybe my brain was wired like that. Maybe I was a night owl. I assumed that maybe I need a sleep specialist or a different bedtime routine or one more thing to try. But what it actually was in my case surprised me. So let's talk about it.
Welcome to Chronic Illness Moms. If you're more than just a tired mom, I'm talking trying to make it through the day without crashing by noon while raising neurodivergent kids, you're not alone. I'm Ashley, a wife, mom, and certified health coach. I have lived with autoimmune disease and flare-ups that made everyday life feel harder than it should. After years of pushing through and burning out, I learned how much stress, poor sleep, and nervous system overload were driving my symptoms. Everything changed when I started building small, realistic habits that actually supported my body instead of fighting it. In this podcast, you'll learn simple habits that help you to feel better. So pop in your earbuds and take a break from the chaos. It's you time.
Have you had those times, especially as a mom with little kids, where you were completely exhausted, but by the time you got ready to go to bed and go to sleep, you were wide awake? And then it's like you've tried everything. Maybe you've tried the screens off. Maybe you've done white noise. You've tried magnesium. You've tried decompressing before bed, doing stretches, praying, doing a journal, whatever it is. And some of the things help, but they don't completely fix it. What I have noticed for me is I've done those things before. And then one night, while lying there with my brain just going and going and going, I started thinking back on when I'd had the last bit of caffeine for the day. And what I realized was I'd had something around 5 or 6 that evening. So it had been, 6 or so hours earlier. And it dawned on me, I wonder if that caffeine is what is keeping me up. Really realizing that was the start of me figuring out something for myself that I had been missing for years. And I want to walk you through what I learned because it might explain more of why you are so exhausted, but then you can't sleep at night. So let's talk about it. Last week I did talk about and we started this mini caffeine series. Last week, we talked about how it affects stress. And this week, we're going to talk about how it affects sleep. So listen, I love coffee. If you've heard me talk for a while, you know this to be true. And I'm not going to ask you to give yours up. So if you're worried that this is one of those episodes that I'm going to make you feel bad because you have coffee, you can relax. That is not what this episode is about. What we're talking about today is something completely different. We're going to talk about why your caffeine sticks around in your body for way longer than you might be feeling the effects of it, why your afternoon coffee or caffeine, whatever it is you're drinking, might be messing with your sleep at night, and then one specific timing shift that you can try out this week without giving anything up. So what I want to say is the half-life of caffeine is roughly 5 to 7 hours, which means if you have a cup of coffee at 2, then anywhere from a quarter to a half of that caffeine could still be in your system at 9 p.m. at night when you're trying to wind down and get ready for bed. Now, depending on how fast your body can clear the caffeine, it's going to vary from person to person. So you might not be physically feeling it. So that buzz or that energy increase that you have was long gone many hours ago. So you think, okay, well, I don't feel that energy shift or that energy increase that I had before. But that's not the same thing as the caffeine and the effects of it being completely out of your body. The reality is half of a cup's worth of caffeine could still be in your body, affecting your nervous system and your ability to sleep for hours after you have forgotten that you even drank it. And here's the part that really does matter. Your nervous system feels it even whenever your body or your brain doesn't think that you're noticing any effects from it. So caffeine isn't necessarily this process of, I drank it and 2 hours later it's cleared out of my body and everything is perfectly fine. That is not the case with caffeine. So the second thing to think about is, yes, some people will say, okay, well, I drank caffeine and I was able to fall asleep just fine. The other problem here is that, yes, you might be able to fall asleep just fine. A lot of people can. I am not one of those. I cannot have caffeine, usually after about 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Honestly, noon is better if I want to sleep well at night. This is something I've experimented with and figured out for myself. But there are people, my husband being an example, who can drink caffeine and then fall asleep. The problem with this, even though we think we're not noticing any effects and we're able to go to sleep, is that caffeine is still circulating in your body, and it can interfere with you being able to get into that deeper stage of sleep. So again, we know from previous episodes that is the stage where your body is going to repair inflammation, restore energy, reset your nervous system, heal, all of those things for the night, which means that a lot of times, even though you had the caffeine and you thought, oh, it was perfectly fine, I was able to fall asleep, you still wake up tired, even after maybe 6, 7, 8 hours of sleep. So what do? You reach for coffee, and the cycle continues. That cycle that stole the effective, good quality sleep from last night is going to go into tomorrow night's sleep as well. And for moms who are dealing with chronic illness and chronic stress, again, a body that is already running on a deficit, that is a very, very, very exhausting and expensive loop for your body to be in. And it's not because caffeine is the enemy. It's that caffeine later in the day might be really a very small reason that you have missed, that you are feeling so unrested, that whether it's that I can't fall asleep or I'm falling asleep, but I'm waking up exhausted. One thing that I recommend looking at when you're experiencing those things, obviously we talk about so many other things in this podcast, but one of those things is, what are your caffeine habits like? What do they look like? What I want to say here is that a lot of times we think being wired but also tired is a personality, or it's just the way I am. But that is typically not the case. A lot of times it could be a timing issue with caffeine. It could also be adrenal issues. There are so many different things. And one of the very small, simple things we can look at first and foremost is, when am I having caffeine in the day? How late into the day am I having caffeine? So what I want you to do is really start to assess and pay attention. When's the last time that I'm having any kind of caffeine at all? And what do I notice whenever I do? What do I notice if I cut back and I say, I'm going to make a cutoff of noon? Like I've said for myself, noon is what works best for me. Really, 2 o'clock is the latest at all for me to go to sleep at a decent time. But even going to sleep not going to sleep, but drinking caffeine at 2, I will notice it is typically 11 o'clock before I can fall asleep. So I want you to start testing this out and seeing. We're not eliminating coffee. If you love that cup in the morning and maybe you want something around lunchtime as well, that's perfectly fine. Again, from last week's episode, if you've been eating before you have your caffeine in the morning, keep doing that. And then the other thing we're going to do is just move your last caffeine, any kind of caffeine you're having, to earlier in the day. And then notice what happens when you do. Really what you're looking for is paying attention at bedtime. Does your brain feel a little bit calmer? Do you notice that you're getting tired earlier? Are you falling asleep a little bit faster? Did you wake up the next morning feeling slightly less exhausted, even though you think, oh my goodness, I was in bed for 8 hours. Why do I feel like I haven't slept? What are you noticing? Just like all the other habits, we're not adding anything to our day. We're just shifting the timing of what you're already doing. Okay, so if you try this out, I want you to come over into the Facebook group and then tell us, what time did you set for your last cup of caffeine? And what did you notice, or what are you noticing as you were testing this out? And this is the other thing I want to say is, I can set this arbitrary deadline of, nothing after noon. And great, it's a great starting point. But kind of like I said earlier, you have to test this out for yourselves. Everyone is unique. The way we are able to break down and process caffeine is going to differ from person to person. I am a person who is very sensitive to a lot of things. So it is no surprise to me at all that I am feeling the effects of caffeine well into, 7, 8, 9 hours afterward. That's just what I notice for myself. But having a deadline, or not really a deadline, well, yes, it's a deadline, but having a starting point of, okay, let's cut off at 2, or let's cut off at noon. That's just giving you a starting point that you can then test out and refine and really give yourself your own data of what works best for your body. So that's what I want you to do. And then I want you to come over to the Facebook group and share with us. How is it going? What time have you noticed works best for you to cut off that afternoon caffeine? And then what are you noticing when you do? All right, friends, I will have the link to the Facebook group down in the show notes below if you have not joined us there. And then for our last episode, which is going to be finishing out this caffeine mini series, I am going to be talking about the question that I think every mom listening has probably wrestled with. which is why can you still feel exhausted even after you've had coffee? Isn't caffeine supposed to make you energetic and alert and all of those things? And also what we're going to be talking about is why that second cup might be making your afternoon worse and not better. So I will see you guys back for that episode, and I hope you have a wonderful week.
Hey friend, I hope you found today's episode helpful. If you did, would you take a minute to share it with another mom who's struggling with chronic symptoms? And leave a review on Apple Podcasts. It means the world to me to know this podcast is making a difference for you. All right, it's time for me to go tackle those snack requests, and remember that a short walk, even if the kids turn it into a race, still counts as self-care. Keep chasing those little wins. Even when it feels messy, you're making progress. The information shared in this podcast is for educational and informational purposes only and is not a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always consult your healthcare provider before making any changes to your health routine. I'm not a doctor, and this podcast is not intended to treat or diagnose any condition. You're the expert on your body. Listen to it and reach out to a trusted provider for support.